I am Debra Weller, storyteller and educator. I live in St. Augustine, Florida in the United States. I have been performing as a storyteller and educating for over 40 years. Today, I am happy to invite you to hear this Enarc Power Talk. My talk today is about storytelling. Storytelling, the ancient art of storytelling, but it's not just for telling stories. You might wonder why I am holding this heart. This heart could be for a story about love. This heart could be a story about science related to the actual components of how the heart works in our body. But today it's going to represent storytelling as the heart of the curriculum. In my 40 years of using storytelling in my classroom and also training teachers and children, I have found this to be the most powerful tool that an educator can have to teach. I call myself a storyteller, story teacher. I want to share with you some examples of how I use storytelling and create a community of storytelling within the classroom. But first, I want to answer the question of why would I choose to use story in my classroom? And I know we are expected to teach so much content, but if we do not have a bridge of the content to attaining full meaning, then the content goes into short-term memory. When we bridge that content with storytelling as a means of educating, then the content will become part of their long-term memory. Brain research shows that when we listen to stories, 7 different areas of our brain light up. Whereas if we're just seeing data and tables or just reading for information without a strong connection, that kind of learning will go into short-term memory. Do we want our students to just learn things for the sake of a test, or would we prefer to give them lifelong learning strategies that help them throughout their entire life? Well, how can storytelling be that connection? As I stated, the brain research shows that story is very powerful. But it also shows that when we're given tables and charts and data and numbers, if we do not connect those forms to a story, the brain is going to be working on overtime trying to make meaning of these unrelated facts and statistics. And it's working so hard it can't possibly learn, therefore it all goes to short-term memory. It doesn't have to be that way, for I have discovered the magic that storytelling can be throughout the curriculum, especially in these areas: social emotional learning, oral literacy, speech, vocabulary development, written language, math, science, history, and communication skills. Now, if one type of teaching strategy could bring you and your students all of those benefits, wouldn't you want to try it? I know I would, and I have. I am going to take you through a few scenarios of how storytelling can support learning in a classroom. It is my philosophy that we have to create a storytelling community with our students. It begins on the first day of school. We don't know one another. We have to teach them all of the routines of how to exist in our classroom. We're a little nervous. We have new students. We have no history on them. And now we are going to go on this journey with them for 9 to 10 months of their life. The classroom needs to be a welcoming and safe place for the children to learn. They cannot learn if they feel threatened, worried, or filled with anxiety. By creating a storying community, they will feel that they are accepted and respected. So on the very first day, after we've gone through all the routines, I gather the children in a circle and we sit down and I introduce them to the story stick. Now, it could be a story stick, it could be a story shoe, a story bear, like a stuffed animal, it could be a story rock, it could be any object that will not cause the children to do a lot of fiddling with their hand, but it becomes sacred. And the story circle is a sacred gathering place in the classroom. There are some rules about the story stick. One of them being only the person speaking gets to hold the stick and speak. Everyone else needs to be a respectful listener. The person who is the storyteller holding the stick uses a bold voice so that everyone in the circle can hear. And the person has to speak loudly enough so that their voice and their important message can be honored by all the people who are listening. So I teach them and we practice those first few days of school. And this is how it might go. I sing a song. Let's join hands and make a circle. Let's join hands and make a circle. We gather. We sit down. I explain the rules of the story stick to them. And the teacher needs to model what she expects of the students. And so I tell them, I will give you time to get your words from your head to your lips. And I count silently on my fingers to 20. Then I model. The first prompt for the first day of school is to say their name in a complete sentence, to tell one true fact about some skill that they have that they're very good at. Hello, my name is Mrs. Weller, and I am an artist. I love to paint in watercolor and acrylic. And then the stick is passed. On the first day of school, some of the children may be feeling a little bit shy and not quite ready to share, and that's okay. If they just need to pass the stick on the first couple of days, that's okay. But after a few days, they will want to tell their story too. And they always join in. In fact, when I hold up a story stick in the classroom, they immediately know, after a few days of practice, to come and sit on the floor without my words being spoken. So through the first week, I might ask getting to know you kind of questions. Tell me about your family and how many people live at your house. Do you have any pets? What are your favorite colors? Do you play any sports or have a talent? Tell me about places that you've traveled to. So we work in that story format every day for a week, and it takes maybe up to 15 minutes. Immediately after we all have had a turn, I ask them to think about what they would like to write in their journal, and for young children maybe to draw in their journals. I excuse them to work at the tables in their journals. They draw or write about what they might have done over the weekend, or a prompt that I might have given them, or whatever is on their mind. Then, when they're finished writing, they pair with another child, knee to knee, eye to eye, sitting on the floor, sharing their journals. Right there, here are some skills we will have gone over. We have done listening skills. We have learned speaking skills, eye contact and respect for our fellow friends. Then we've taken it to writing skills. How else would I use this in my classroom beyond this? Well, story is another component to solve social emotional issues in the classroom. We gather in the story stick to solve problems in that circle without pointing fingers at any child. So for instance, we might say, I noticed that there's some difficulty with us being kind when we're out on the playground. Or perhaps it's sharing. What are some of those social emotional things that we need to know about? So I'll set up a scenario. And sometimes I will even use a puppet to help with that kind of learning. Hello, Purple Monster. Somebody called me a name at the playground today. Oh, how did it make you feel, Purple Monster? I felt sad. Oh, Purple Monster, could you and the children figure out a way to solve that problem of using unkind words? Okay, let's work on it together. And what I do next is we pass the story stick and find a solution to that problem. And around it goes, so everyone has a chance to do a solution. Sometimes I'll write those solutions, and we will come up with ways we can practice solving a social emotional problem in our classroom. And puppets are a great way to do that without pointing your finger and saying, Lindy had a difficult time on the playground today. She was using unkind words. We do it through the puppet, and then it's at no fault to anyone, but we collectively learn. Thank you, Purple Monster, for demonstrating this today. We'll see you again. Now, oral literacy is so important to develop, and especially for children who are learning a second language. We want to help them. We might start with showing them a picture of an object and ask them to describe that object just by what they see. We then might have another picture of a child. And perhaps the first picture was a chair and this other picture was a child. Then we help that child to develop a story between the picture of the child and the picture of the chair, encouraging descriptive words and vocabulary. So developing oral language skills by using the story stick helps them. Another way that I use the story stick to create a story in the classroom is by thinking of that science question. We're learning about the water cycle. And I'll start by passing the stick and saying, what do we know about the water cycle? Just to engage in that pre-learning assessment. And then, after a week of learning all about the water cycle, doing science experiments, doing math, investigating nonfiction, or watching some videos, learning with experiments, we'll come back to the story stick and I'll ask them, what did we learn about the water cycle? And we might even sing a song like evaporation, condensation, precipitation. That's the water cycle. The children will learn to tell stories, math. We don't want it to be unrelated facts about the distributive property and addition and subtraction. No, we want to make stories so they understand and can use manipulative objects to understand the concepts, especially in young children. And we want to encourage them to talk story about the math or the science that they are learning. I always find that when I incorporate storytelling, whether it's literature that we're studying, we can understand the concepts better. And now I will give you a short example of that using a fable, which are great stories for learning many concepts. Let's see if you can figure out what properties we will learn about. Crow flew around. He was parched from the hot sun, and then he came to look down, and he said, I've got to find some water. Below him was a farm. He saw a woman hanging out the laundry. I don't want her to see her. I don't want her to see me. She'll shoo me away, and I'm so parched. I have to find water. Crow flew down to get a closer view, and there on the end of a table was a pitcher. He landed on the table, looking all around, making sure the farmer's wife would not find him, and he scuttled over to the pitcher, put his beak in, and said, oh, the water's so far down. How will I ever get the water? Well, Crow saw some pebbles on the ground. He flew over and picked up a pebble and dropped it into the pitcher, and then another one, and another one, and another one. Soon the water rose, and Crow could take a drink of water, and his thirst was now ended, and he could fly away to his home. So there we have the beginning of a science experiment. How can we raise the level of the water in order to attain it, whether it's in a well or whether it would be to get a drink by dropping the pebbles in? Storytelling has always been the heart of my curriculum. I find ways to start with a story. If we're learning about photosynthesis, if we're learning about why leaves change colors, I start with a story. Then we go into the hands-on learning to find the data to back it up. But it isn't just the teacher telling stories. I encourage the students to tell stories too.